First you imitate, then you innovate, Miles Davis once said. Athletes, musicians, writers, and artists, among many others, have put this idea into action, and for good reason. It works. When it comes to learning, the idea is this: study the work of others, someone whose work you admire and want to emulate. Imitate their work or their performance, then innovate. Now, I admit this sounds good in theory, but how do you put it into practice? Well, one way to go about it is to apply a learning technique Benjamin Franklin used to become a better writer. In this video, I'm going to explain this learning technique that Franklin used, which involves studying the articles of writers he wanted to emulate. It's a tactic that can be applied to nearly any skill. In fact, I've used it myself to learn to write and to get better at solving programming problems. Whether you're trying to get better at cooking or programming or anything in between, you should give this tactic a try. Let's get started. If you're joining me for the first time, then welcome. I'm Amy, and on this channel I talk about learning, programming, and skill building. Let's dive into it. Benjamin Franklin wanted to become a better writer, so this is what he did. First, he would choose an article from The Spectator. This was a publication he admired and wanted to emulate. Second, he'd study the article by making hints of the sentiment in each sentence. After a few days passed, Franklin used the hints to replicate the article. Now, this was not a process in memorization. He was not trying to memorize the article word for word. Rather, he aimed to capture the same expression and completeness as the original using his own words that came to mind. Third, Franklin compared his version of the article to the one he studied. He identified his mistakes and corrected them. So as I've said, I've used this approach myself to learn to write, and have also used it to get better at solving programming problems. And I can tell you this, it works. This tactic can be molded to fit nearly any skill that you might be working on. The recipe is nearly the same. Let's see how. First, find someone in your field who does the thing you want to do and does it well. This should be someone whose skills you admire and want to emulate. Ideally, this is someone who is better than you and can teach you something by the work that they produce. Think of the experts in your field for ideas. Even someone who's just a step or two ahead of you can work for this practice. For example, say you're a high school tennis player. You could pick an advanced high school tennis player or a college player for this practice. Second, study the person's skill, their outcome or performance by making hints. Let's consider a couple of examples. Perhaps like Franklin, you too want to become a better writer. You've identified a publication you admire and want to emulate. From this publication, you've selected an article to study. Now, you're going to study the article by making hints, by capturing the overall ideas and expression in each sentence, which is the aim of this step. You could also apply this step for performance-related skills like shooting free throws. Say you watch a video of a good free throw shooter. Then, write some hints to explain the process. Third, replicate. Let some time pass as Franklin did, then use the hints you created as a guide to replicate the skill that you studied. For example, rewrite the article, recreate the design, resolve the problem. You want enough time to pass so you're forced to think through the process yourself. Now, I admit, this sounds easy, but in practice this can be hard to do. In fact, you might not resolve the problem or rewrite the article perfectly, if at all. Don't get frustrated. Instead, take it as a sign that you are learning and you picked a good person to study from. If you get really stuck, review the work that you studied, update your hints, and try replicating the work once again. The fourth step in this process is to study your outcome. Compare your outcome, the thing you just replicated, to the one you studied. As you compare, identify your mistakes and make the changes. Do not bypass this step. This is an important step to take in order to build a critical skill, self-assessment. You want to train your mind and eye to identify your mistakes and correct them. And yes, make the changes. This will only further solidify your understanding. Apply this learning tactic as often as possible, especially if you're just starting out. This is time well spent because you will hit on several core competencies of skill building. You'll learn how an expert in your field works. You'll get practice doing the thing you want to improve upon at the level you want to be at. You get practice teaching yourself. You develop your ability to self-assess your own work. And you'll build good habits from the start. There's a lot to like about this learning tactic, and I hope you give it a try. And when you do, please leave a comment at the end of this video and let me know how it went. That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please click that like button and subscribe button for more. And make it an effective day.